Oh. Welcome everybody to the latest Street Badass live stream, a very exciting live stream this evening with street photographer Richard Bram. There he is.
That was the longest wait in the world.
I couldn't believe it.
But we're there, so that's good.
I kind of stopped breathing when it happened. So now I got to kind of catch my breath now because of all that. Thanks,
It's quite
Danny.
impressive because as soon as I've gone on, the dogs have got their dinner, and that's going to make tons of noise. So there we go. Right, okay.
You got some dog dinner going on over there?
Dog dinner going on. So if you can hear some eating in the background, that's what that is. Right. So first,
go ahead, Danny.
I just wanted to mention that Mark Seymour, and he was one of our winners, and he at the Street Photography Festival. I think he won portrait category. Pretty sure with that photograph. Is that right?
Yeah, that's amazing, that photograph.
And he has finished his zine, which was his prize, basically, one of his prizes. And
that looks amazing. Yeah, and that's called Layers. Cool. What's the name of that actually?
So this is Layers of India.
Nice. That looks amazing, that zine, doesn't it?
One thing, Mark, who has been on the live stream before, is he's brilliant at composition. Really, really strong compositions, which I'll try and find a good one to show you. So that's a good one.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well
so
done,
this is
Mark.
Available. If you're interested in this scene, go and see Mark Seymour's account. I'm sure there'll be a link there to it. And it's well worth getting. He was kind enough to send me.
I've got one coming. I heard it's going to be. It went in the mail a couple days ago. So.
Oh, I think he just likes me best, so he gave it to
me. All right. You got to put it that way, Danny. Hey, let's get Richard on here. It's nice talking to you, Danny, but I just want to get Richard on. Hold on. All right, Richard, you've been invited. Welcome.
Welcome along. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Hello, kids.
Now we've got a little bit of a link here. So we've got an American at the top, an Englishman over here, and you're an American living in London.
Well, I'm also British. I mean, I have a British passport now. So
there you go.
American and I'm British, dug in. I've been here since 1997.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a long time. That's about the same amount of time as me. I'm about that old, I think. 97.
That's a pretty good run, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an interregnum of like 2008 to 16 when I was in New York, but I've still lived in London longer than any place else in my entire life. And the house we first lived in, which is over the road from where I am now, is the longest I ever lived in one place in my entire life. So.
Sorry, I've been left with the dog job.
Yeah, well, it happens.
Okay.
He's in the doghouse, Danny.
I wasn't going to make that joke. Thank you for doing it for me.
I won't let one corny joke go by.
Yeah,
that's one thing that you might learn here, Richard, on this live stream, that Danny will not let something like that go by as well.
Well, neither will I usually, so fair enough.
Todd, I just want to mention your light again. It's pretty spectacular. I'm really appreciating it. I think we should have that every time. And Richard, I think Todd's got the first question that we ask everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So, Richard, this is kind of the going first question that we ask. Tell us about the first time that you had a camera in your hand. Was it love at first sight? Were you off to the races?
There's a picture way down on my Instagram feed. You got to get down about 4 miles down the feed of a little tyke at about 2.5 years old in 1954 unwrapping a Brownie Bakelite holiday camera about this big. And he looks like he's enjoying it because his dad is taking pictures of him doing so. The only reason I remember this is because I have that photograph. But I did not know immediately, oh, I'm going to be a photographer now. Nah.
So how long was it after that then that you started out?
Well, I like taking pictures occasionally, but I never thought of myself as a photographer. Until finally, it was the 1980s when I was in my 30s, and I got laid off and fired from all what could laughingly be called my real jobs. Um, that I thought, all right, with encouragement of friends, and I, begun to make a lot more pictures in the few years preceding it. But I would say it was 1979 or 80 when I began to really take a lot of pictures. And in 84, when I decided to do something completely insane and said, okay, I'm a photographer, and hung up my shingle and proceeded to starve for a couple of years because, the talent and the was there, but the craft wasn't there. There's a huge difference between being a talented amateur and a working professional PR photographer, which is what I became.
And so if you had, let me ask you this way. If you were able to tell yourself at that age when you started out doing photography, when everybody encouraged you, what would be the thing that you would tell your younger self as your today self? What would
Are
be
you
the
out of your
one piece of
fucking mind?
advice?
No, seriously, I was armed with ignorance and courage. If I'd really known how hard it was going to be, I might not have had the courage to do so. But for the first time in my life, I was doing something that I actually enjoyed. And I was lucky. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, a relatively small American city, friendly, and I was able to make a living as a photographer after a few years, and some lucky breaks, and some help from some very good photographers along the way. I never was a formal assistant to anybody, but I went to the library, and everything you need to know is in the library, and it's free, but you have to find it yourself. And that's what I did. And I made a whole lot of mistakes. I made so many mistakes, I really got good at making the same mistakes. But eventually, I built a clientele and was earning a living as a photographer.
So you received one of your biggest breaks in Louisville, Kentucky. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And I think it involves horses.
Yeah, you might say that. It's funny. It goes back, involves banjos even before that, which is, pretty scary. But in 1984, I went on spec and shot a bunch of slides at the Kentucky Fried Chicken Bluegrass Festival. And I took them into the people at Kentucky Fried Chicken, which was headquartered there. It was a corporation. And the woman there said, well, Richard, these are very good, but of course we have hired Nation and Beckman to do this for us, and so I can't use your pictures. I said, crushed, of course, because I wasn't going to get any money out of this. But if next year, if John decides not to do it, here's my card, call me. And by God, the next year, one of the guys decided not to do it. And I got the call. And that was my first big gig in 85, photographing on the first weekend of September, the KFC Bluegrass Festival. And then I made friends with a guy named John Nation. And John was one of the most prominent, well-known photographers in the entire region. We're still very, very close friends. And he got a call from the Kentucky Derby Festival, which is the big series of events that happen for the 4 weeks before the Kentucky Derby, which is America's biggest horse race. And he said, this is too big a job for three people. I mean, for one person. They said, well, that's your problem. Here's what we're paying. And he called Samples, who he knew, and he called me because we worked well together a few months earlier. And we were both, crazy single guys, same age, derelicts around town. And that was my biggest break. 1986, I became one of the three photographers for the Kentucky Derby Festival. All those events have a corporate sponsor. And all of those corporate sponsors see me and the other guys down front working, and they see all these beautiful photographs, because you never, ever show bad photographs.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Never. And that works in street photography too. If you have a picture you're not sure about, don't show it to anybody. Only show people the good stuff and they'll think you're a genius. But anyway, but that was the start of my career, because then I could go into the corporations and say, oh, Richard, of course, hello, how are you? But we use Christina, or we use John, or we use David, or we use Pat. And I said, of course you do. They're all good photographers. Also, never badmouth anybody. Don't ever badmouth anybody. It's not worth your time. But I said, of course. But, you know, they're busy because they are good. So if you can't get hold of them, here's my card. Give me a call. And within a couple of very hungry years, the phone started to ring. And eventually I was as busy as a one-man shop could be. And that's how I built my career around the Kentucky Derby Festival. And I got to photograph the horses, and I got to go to the Kentucky Derby with the press pass, which is one of the greatest things in the universe.
So here's my next question about the Kentucky Derby. How many of those Kentucky Derbies do you have to shoot before they make you a Kentucky Colonel?
I have no idea, because I ain't one. I'm not even a Kentucky sergeant, you know. But I have no idea. Nobody ever did that for me, so what? Big deal.
At what age did you discover street, and who influenced you as a photographer?
Okay,
another leading question from that: who influences you now? So it's what age did you discover street, and who influenced you as a photographer?
Okay, for me, street grew out of the outtakes. You know, the job as a PR photographer is to make everything look pretty and beautiful, and that's your job, you know. But you also see off to the side things that are interesting, but you know the client's not interested in, but that might be an interesting photograph. And you take that with the other camera, because you're always carrying too many cameras. And it was the outtakes that sort of led me indirectly into street photography. And that led to my first exhibition, which was called Spectators, which was all the outtakes, all the uncomfortable moments that my client sure as heck did not wish to see. And then an odd thing happened, Danny. I went through a long series of circumstances. I went to Russia in 1992. I'd been a photographer for 8 years at that point. And I went alone, 2 cameras and a bag of film. And I suddenly had no shot list, no agenda, and a week in Moscow and a week in St. Petersburg. I was 40 years old, and I said, I'm going to take pictures of everything. And I didn't speak the language. I could parse the alphabet, but that's about it. And I walked all day for 2 weeks and shot everything I felt like shooting. And that was the true seminal moment for me as a street photographer. And then I went back to Louisville, went back to making PR photographs and outtakes, and also shooting musicians, classical musicians, pop musicians, because I was in-house photographer at the Center for the Arts. I mean, it's a pretty varied career. I did a lot of different stuff.
And influences, when you discovered that it was street, what was your influences there?
Okay. When I decided to be a photographer, as I said, I went to the library. And I started, I pretty much skimmed the entire photo section of the Louisville Free Public Library system, because my first client was the Louisville Library for their newsletter. They didn't pay much, but I wasn't very good, so it was a fair trade. But it was my education. I touched every photographic book in the library's collection. And I went through the monographs. And Andrei Kertész jumped off, and he's still my ultimate touchstone. Here's a man with a 60, 70-year working life from before the First World War to 1985. He influenced Cartier-Bresson, in Brassai. Those guys are latecomers compared to him. And then, of course, Cartier-Bresson and the Romantic humanist photography. That was my first influences. And at the same time, I pulled this book called Public Relations off the shelf by Gary Winogrand. And I opened it and I went, bah! What is this? These are ugly pictures. how could anybody pay him for this? And being lazy, I didn't read the intro where it talked about how he got a Guggenheim grant to do this. But after being a PR photographer for a few years, I began to see the same things. And then I got it. So Winogrand and also Robert Frank became very strong influences in the back of my head. The other influence is, frankly, I studied photographic history. And at uni, back in the 70s, I studied art history, a lot of it, because that teaches you composition. And eventually you get enough of it in the back of your head that it's internalized and you don't think about it, but it's always there. And that's how you know what a good picture is. Because, oh yeah, that reminds me of something else that's a trope from our history or photographic history. And if with all of that in the back of your head, you don't think about it when you're making the picture, but you're thinking about it later when you're editing the pictures and deciding which one's good and which one isn't. And so that is it was utterly invaluable. Does that make sense, Danny?
Yeah, some really strong influences there. Great photographers. One leading question from that was, who influences you now? Who keeps you going? What sort of photography do you like looking at?
Well, I'm looking at work of my colleagues. You know, the UP photographers. We're still, you know, we've been around for 25 years, the oldest and original collective. The names have changed through some other circumstances, which we're not going to talk about. But they're still some of the best street photographers in the world and have been for a long, long time. I look at Instagram. I look at what's happening. It just at random. I don't have. I mean, recent people I've looked at because I've been to a lot of the same places are like Alex Webb. And someone like that has a very distinct style. You know an Alex Webb picture when you see it. I suppose the greatest modern touchstone for me is probably Joe Marowitz, who's now in his mid-late 80s and still shooting. And, you know, should I be lucky enough to get to my late 80s, I want to be like that, okay? Because dynamic, alive, and sharp as a tack. And his work and his thought process is still an influence on me. And I can still be pleasantly, really surprised by younger people who are doing good things. I can't pop out with names. You know, I see the pictures, I like the pictures, but the names are not coming to me right now.
So you've got a couple questions here that I was going to ask you we had some suggestions. I put in the Street Badass channel if anyone wanted to ask you questions, so I got some questions from there. So we have Raul Yano, Street Photo. How has your approach to street photography changed over time?
Okay, when I moved here in '97, moved to London, that's when I really started being just a street photographer. I still did some corporate work, but it was walking around getting used to this new place. And I did what at the time weren't cliches, which is people and signs. I mean, my first famous photo is the angel with the halo. And that's because I was carrying groceries through High Street Ken, and I saw this guy standing in front of an Absolute Vodka ad that was 1998. And I went, oh my God. But he was over there and I wasn't in the right position. So I shuffled down the platform carrying groceries, dropped the groceries and made the photograph. But I had to part the sea because there were 4 people there going, oh my God, look at that. Don't you wish you had a camera? Oh, it's just a great photograph. I said, I have a camera. I need to be right where you are. Excuse me. And they moved. And I was able to get 3 frames. His train came. My train came. Gone. 30 seconds.
Were all those people Dick Van Dyke?
Yes, they were. They were all doing bad accents, just like me. Precisely. Thank you, Danny. A little slap in the face is always good. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's I forget what the actual question was. So, but that was, and then I did a whole series of people in juxtapositions against signs, but those are now cliches. I really don't do that what I call one-liners, quick jokes. I don't really do that anymore. Those are like warm-up exercises. And then you're looking for something that has more content. I am looking for a gesture, a moment, something significant that elevates it and gives me a human moment. That it may be funny, but I'm not necessarily looking for jokes anymore.
Do you have a route that you go on when you when you walk the street in London? Do you go to certain places? Do you have like a circuit?
No. I'm often in the same places because that's where my daily life takes me, which is the same thing that happened when I went to New York. The pictures that are in the New York book are just that. Most of them are in the same neighborhoods where I lived or where I walk around. So I don't have like Oxford Street is usually good, but or Soho. If I look at my London pictures, they're usually taken in pretty much the center, but I've gotten pictures in Clerkenwell when I was going to and from Metro with film, or anywhere. You know, if you have a camera with you all the time, something's going to happen wherever you are if you're awake and lucky and you don't have the camera turned off at the wrong moment, which happens a lot.
Hey, let me grab another question here from the chat. This is from Rob. Boyd Street 1. You're definitely a well-traveled fella. What's your favorite destination in the world, and where is your happy place?
Well, my happiest place is right here at home because that's just my base with my wife and our home together. Favorite places, I've spent a lot of time in Oaxaca in the south of Mexico. I went there for the first time in '96 with this woman I just met. I asked her to marry me there, and we've been back there 20 times since. I've made a lot of photographs. I've had exhibitions there. I'm friends with some amazing photographers there. So that's one of the happy places. I love Italy. Rome is a favorite city, and Umbria and the areas around central Italy as well. Those are favorite places. And I've made a lot of pictures there as well. But again, that's just a place where I'm comfortable and I'm happy. And the food's good, the wine's good, the people are nice. I'm comfortable in parts of Germany because I've been there a lot, especially up and down the Rhineland, where I have a lot of friends there as well through all sorts of insane connections, but that's where it is. And my old hometown, Louisville, Kentucky. It's the hometown because that's where I became who I am. It's not where I was born. It's not where I was even brought up. But I think of that as my root place. More Philadelphia is just where I was born.
Hey, so as a street photographer, Richard, how important is it to you that you're in an urban environment, or do you think that you can shoot street photography anywhere?
Street photography can be anywhere. I mean, New York is a great place for street photography because it's easy. I mean, there's just so much. It's so crowded. There are so many people, and they pay no attention to another idiot with a camera because there's so many. But you can do it anywhere, but you have to be a little more delicate and careful, depending on where you are. You got to be sensitive to where you are. And if someone says, what?
Well, do you feel like starting out in Louisville actually prepped you pretty well for that? Because that's not such a big city. It's a relatively big city, but it did have, you had to have your wits about you, had to be charming to a certain extent to get the photos.
Yes, I think that's a good point, Todd. It's, I mean, a humble manner and a quick smile can get you through a hell of a lot. Also, because of the things I was shooting, big public events, big crowds, masses of people, and right in the middle of it, you get used to it. You don't think about it. And then you're a little more comfortable pulling a camera up quickly and making a shot.
Hey, let's take a look at this picture real quick here, because I think this is Mexico. This is one of my favorite shots. Is that a
Oh my
Mexico
God,
shot right there?
that's funny. Yeah, my wife and I were walking back from the market carrying some flowers and groceries to our hotel room. And I saw this little kid coming along going, bang, 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 with his toy gun. And I said, honey, get the bags. Dropped the bags, ran after him, and took about 4 or 5 frames. And there it was, the assassin.
One thing I like about your black and white work is it's quite timeless. I couldn't tell you whether this was 40 years ago or last week. It's like it's got that
Thank
feel
you.
to it. It's got a real nice sort of nostalgic look to your photography.
I don't think that's intentional. I think it's just because it's dark and the lens is wide open, so it's soft focus.
Yeah. Are we going to get some more on, or do you want another question?
Yeah,
I got
whatever.
another one on here. Hold on.
Let's get another one.
I wanted to get the opening shot here too, because I had a question about. So this is the Big Hair series that you did,
Right.
and
That's what I
this
mean
was
about
actually
outtakes. There were these
yeah,
beer gardens.
and what I liked about this is I see that was probably an outtake, but it was also with flash. And this was kind of a departure for you because you didn't shoot. I mean, you did a lot of the public, like the parties and this kind of stuff with flash, but like your typical street wasn't necessarily flash. But I really liked how you did the flash there. But you described flash, if I remember correctly, as a slap in the eyeballs.
It
And so
is.
so you have to be you have to take some preparation for that. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I know a lot of people love the look of Flash and emulate Bruce Gilden. And Bruce is a nice guy, contrary to what people may think. And but if you pop a flash in somebody's eyes in the dark, you are slapping him in the eyeballs, especially if it's unaware and unannounced. So I'm at these beer gardens, and um, it's dark, so you got to use a flash. This is 400 or maybe T-Max 3200 or T-Max 400. So, and I'm using a pretty powerful flash, and it was just that was a project. I was partly fueled by some personal crises, a breakup with a girlfriend, and all sorts of other nonsense. Um, but I really went out for all the summer events for about 3-4 years looking for this, and just I probably came down to about 40 or 50 pictures from about 60 or 70 rolls of film.
Oh,
And it's one of maybe 2 real bodies of work other than PR outtakes that I actually intentionally shot with a flash. Both of which were made when I was kind of angry within myself, because I think it is an aggressive way of doing things. And I'm not usually angry. I'm not usually aggressive. I like people mostly, and I don't want to make somebody look bad. But this was an interesting phenomenon, and it eventually just became a lot of fun. But I think that's all part of the psychological background of what's going on in these photographs. I think anybody's photographs, if you look at a whole bunch of their work, not the good ones, the bad ones, everything, you can tell what's going on in their head at that time. Not the good pictures, the bad pictures, but as like an aggregate. It's same with an artist. If you can see what's going on in somebody's mind by the art they make, or
That's
at
very
least their
interesting.
emotional life.
Yeah, I think that is a thing, isn't it? They say a lot about artists, but I never really thought about it with photographers. But I'm sure it is the same. We've got a few questions here actually on the live stream itself that have come up. So the first one was, let's go back. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Where have you been uncomfortable? And that's from Teti Lulu Momento.
Where
Momio.
have I been uncomfortable? Well, sometimes when it's too crowded. even while shooting Big Hair and True Love, sometimes people are uncomfortable because when you're using a flash, you get one shot. It's one shot and you got to go because everyone knows you're there. And sometimes people are going to come up to you and say, "Did you take a picture of my girlfriend? What are you doing?" And then you have to sort of smile, act goofy, and say, "I don't know, I just took a picture," and act like an idiot, and walk away quickly. And sometimes people will say, "Don't take my picture," and they'll get a little aggressive. And what do? Don't take their picture. There's another picture elsewhere. First rule of street photography, I said this once, don't be an asshole. First rule as a photographer, don't be an asshole. If someone doesn't want their picture taken, don't follow them around trying to get the picture. Then you're being a creep.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good advice. Good advice. Okay, so we've got another question here.
You going to do another question, Danny? While you're getting the question, let's get this picture on, because this one is
sure.
a very powerful picture.
That's funny. That relates to a picture I took a few years earlier in London that was in 150 years of London street photography at the Museum of London. I was waiting under a sidewalk bridge, August, summer rainstorm. And what do? I'm a photographer. I got a camera, I got film. I'm amusing myself by watching people go through the corner and trying to make some interesting photographs. So the camera's set, the exposure's right, it's focused correctly on the right point, and suddenly the guy falls. Don't think that, do it really fast. And he wasn't hurt. He was pissed off because he fell over in the rain. But one of the things I love about the picture is because the other pictures are all more well composed, but this happened so fast. You get the tilted perspective, and the piece of luck is the umbrella handle is in the same shape of his leg.
There's a lot of energy in this one.
How many banana skins did you have to put down there for that to happen?
Oh, it was a lot. And they were wet, so it was really slippery.
Okay, we've got one from Gaia I. What about privacy when taking pics of people? There are many laws in different countries. How do we deal with this?
Well, I'm an old guy and I just don't care. But I
like that attitude right there.
The privacy laws are essentially self-protection laws for lawyers and politicians. I remember when the former president of France was caught on camera going out of the Elysee Palace on his motorcycle to visit his mistress. Said, "Oh, you cannot take my picture. This is invading my privacy." And you're the president, dude. You don't have privacy in that job. But I find most of it essentially ridiculous. This has been hyped up by people saying we are protecting your privacy. You're in public. Anyone can see. If you're out with a girlfriend who is not your wife and you're in public, everybody can see you, and your neighbor could come around the corner and see you. I mean, Diane Arbus said one of the dangers of going out in public is the likelihood of being photographed. And I'm not hurting anybody. Nobody's being hurt by these pictures. Taking a picture of someone in a public place. Now, I'm also not trying to be mean, unless they're, being schmucks in public, in which case they're fair game. But nobody's being hurt. Why? What's the problem? And I know there are privacy laws. If someone objects, I always pay attention to an objection. But I'll take the picture, but I may not be able to show it in Germany or Hungary or France. Although I had a big, massive retrospective in the summer of 2020 in Mannheim, Germany, and Germany has privacy laws. I know Siegfried Hansen in Hamburg is very careful about this because he lives there. But I intentionally put up 4 or 5 pictures in that exhibition of 100 photographs of Germany, of German street photographs, with no permissions, because if you ask, I'll go into that later. And nobody said a thing. Nobody paid any attention. They all loved the exhibition. They all loved photographs. They even sold a couple of them.
Good advice. After spending 40 years as a photographer, do you still have the same drive and passion as you did at the beginning? And how much does having a legacy mean to you?
Having a legacy means a tremendous amount. I'm not out making as many pictures as I used to. I'll tell you, I'm not out trolling. I have so much work in the archive and the back catalog that I'm going through it now looking for stuff. And I'm finding things that, oh, I got to print that. Oh, I got to get that picture out. And then something else comes in and it gets pushed aside. And then you come upon it 5 years later and you say the same thing and it still doesn't come out. Well, now it's coming out. Also, with the advent of good scanners, I'm going through all the slides because I've always shot color, but I could never get it printed properly. But now I can scan it and output it to the appallingly high standards that I have with my black and white and finally get the picture to look like what I want it to look like. So the one thing I'm still taking a lot of pictures of is the Thames, because now we live on the Thames, and I've got this whole series called Limehouse Reach, which is landscape photography and far removed from the world of the street and street badass. But it's something that I'm doing now because I've always done lots of different things. Does that answer the question, I hope?
Yes, it does, yeah.
And so round about 2010, you went out and got a Leica M9. And when you got that Leica M9, you made a decision about going from black and white to color. Could you tell us a little bit about that decision?
Sure. I was feeling stale. I felt like I'd made the same picture, 10 too many times. I felt that way in Louisville as a PR photographer. It's like all towns are small towns when you're talking about photographing the muckety mucks, cutting ribbons and shaking hands and smiling and opening buildings and making speeches. It's a relatively small group of people. It's like, oh God, if I got to take a picture of this banker one more time, I'm just going to kill myself. And then you take his picture and you get paid, which is okay. But I felt like I'd taken the same picture over and over again in black and white. And I was never really comfortable on the street doing regular street photography with a DSLR. And I mean, the Leica had been pretty much my street camera since I bought this beat up used M3, which was made in 1955. And I bought it in 1987. And I went, oh, that's nice. And it doesn't make much noise. It's really quiet. And that's why I bought it, because I was working with the orchestra and my Nikon F2. See, I've prepared my props here for this, But, this was my workhorse. But listen to that. You hear that. So, but those two cameras have a 35 f2 lens on them. If you took the same picture with both cameras, you'd be hard put to tell which camera you took it from. But it's more how it felt in the hand and the noise. And I really got to like the rangefinder. It just became, my extension. So that's what I was comfortable with on the street. And that's what I used for most of my things. But but then when the M9 came out, it's the same camera, same feel, same size, and uses all the lenses that I already owned, so I didn't have to go out and buy new glass. And it didn't attract attention. And it made beautiful images. And it worked just like it just worked the same. I didn't have to change my routine. And I've been a manual, I rarely had an automatic camera. I never upgraded from my work cameras. I never upgraded from the manual F2 to ones with automatic stuff. I didn't need it. I'd done it so much, it was in my hands, not in my head. So
here's
and
one of
color
your thoughts.
is harder to do well. Now that's an early one. Now that was made in 2000. I was visiting some friends. That was like 2005, and that was made with a Nikon DSLR. But I love that picture. That's in Bystanders now, the history of street photography. But that was made with the DSLR. That was made with the M9 here at Canary Wharf. And it was just people and the signs in the background and something about the woman's expression as she came through in the front. There were a couple of frames there, and the guy with the glasses, with the almost military kind of glasses in front of these alarming photographs. It just all seemed to come together for me.
Now, if we look at this work, it's vastly different from your black and white work, and you transitioned over to color. What was the year you went?
2010 to 11, roughly.
2010 to 11. What was the driver of that? What
As I said, I felt stale, Danny, and I thought I need to do something to wake myself up. And to do color well is harder than doing black and white well, because you got all those other variables you got to deal with. If there's something in the background that is distracting color, some people might change it in Photoshop. I won't. It's either got to be there or it's not. See if I can find a photograph that demonstrates that from the New York book while we're talking. So what I was going to show is this one. Okay.
Nice.
New
Bring
York.
that a little bit closer, Richard. A little bit closer. Oh, look at it. Look at that stance. What's going on there? What's he got in his hand?
This is just a really tense New York business guy. He looks like he's about to explode, and his phone in his hand has a red dot on it. Looks like he's about to push it and explode.
It does look like that.
But
maybe
in the
he
background,
is. Was there an explosion at the back? Just
not that I heard, anyway. I think I ran away pretty quickly because it looked dangerous. But in the back, see, there's a guy with a red jacket in the background. If he'd been much closer, it might have been a distraction. Or if it had been like fluorescent pink or really bright, that would have taken your eye away from the guy with a red tie. And that means the picture's not going to work because I'm not going to change it.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by you got to have all the variables under control. There's another one here. Let me see if I can find it.
While you're looking, Richard, so are you normally shooting 35 mil, or are you shooting 28?
Yeah.
35?
35. When I later bought a Leica Q, which is a fixed 28. But most of my pictures, pretty much my standard kit is a 35. Full frame 35 millimeter film size or digital sensor size, and 35 millimeter f2 lens. That's chances are that's what I'll have. And I work close.
That sounds like a nice lens. That's very similar to what I shoot with.
Yeah. It does the job for me.
We've got a question here from the Arrivals Gate. I think she's he or she has sent this. I should know who that is. I recognise that name. Sent this again. So, okay, I'm sending this again. Do you find it hard to shoot landscape? I'm obsessed with photographing the human face and all the emotions that come with it. I found landscape really hard to connect with.
In some ways, I agree with you completely. Because I'm a people person, and that someone asked me what kind of pictures you take. I take pictures of people, but they're not necessarily portraits, although if I do portraits, it's a different thing. But the landscape is only because I'm sitting here. I go out to my terrace on the other end of the house, and there's this bend in the Thames in Limehouse Reach. And I've always said I'd rather sit in a landscape and feel it and absorb it than try to put it in a little rectangle, because that's, it doesn't work. And while I admire Ansel Adams, one of the most boring shows I ever went to was a huge Ansel Adams retrospective. Each individual photograph was beautiful and perfect, but as a mass, it was like, but here I am on the Thames.
But he fiddled with his pictures a lot too, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But that's just being a master photographer and printer in black and white, and I fully respect all of that. But I see the same thing. Turner, the great painter Turner, and Whistler all painted and drew within 100 yards of where we live. The most famous British painting by Turner, the Fighting Temeraire, being dragged to Limehouse to be broken up here, right where I'm here. So I see the light, the air, the water. It's dramatic. It always different. The tide goes up and down 7 meters, 21 feet every day. It's remarkable. And yeah, I try to put a rectangle around it. Sue me. You know, but it's a different thing. And I think to be an interesting photographer, you can do more than one thing. That's okay. And it's not easy, but it's right here, and I can't ignore it. I mean, if you lived, there's a woman in New York named Sally Davis, and she walks around the Lower East Side and in all different parts of New York and make pictures of storefronts. But they're wonderful pictures of storefronts. They're really atmospheric, and she's a fine, fine photographer and a great painter as well. And you say, oh, they're just storefront. Not when you see her pictures of storefronts.
I've got a question from Hobbit182. What's it like living next door to a wizard?
I hardly ever see him. He doesn't mix with the neighborhood very much. However, his staff guards the till inside the Grapes pub 4 doors down.
For anyone that doesn't know, Richard lives next door to Ian McKellen, Gandalf. 1 second.
Yeah, he's a few doors down. You know, he keeps to himself but you see him walk around. I know who he is, but half the time he looks like an almost homeless person because he doesn't want to be bothered. And I don't talk to him because he doesn't want to be talked to. You know, I'll say, good morning, neighbor, and we'll nod and smile, and that's it. We're not.
Does he have the whole get up on, like the pointy hat and the robe?
Yeah,
all the time. Yeah, you never notice anybody dressed like that. Yeah, of course he does.
I've got a story about Ian McKellen. So I was driving back through London. I was just past Tower Bridge, so basically quite near. I got to the point where I was quite near where you live.
Yeah.
And it was in traffic, so it was a traffic jam as usual. And
yeah.
I saw him in my wing mirror on the back of a motorbike. So I think he has like a driver basically wheels him around. And it was trafficy, so I stuck my arm out and I shouted out to him, "You shall not pass!" like that. And then
who doesn't think so either?
I twigged him, and he didn't really appreciate it, and then just let him through. But I thought it was funny, so it's all good.
Yeah, you know what? He's heard that 1,000 times too.
Yes, I think he's probably heard it. Yeah.
A quick question here. We have another one from the channel. Stage compositions are welcome in street photography, or it breaks the romance?
I don't know if it's romance. I think it's different. I don't have any problem with it. You know, it's a broad church. There ain't no rules, and there's no problem if as long as you're upfront about your methods. If you're setting something up and it's a good picture, fine. I used to be a lot more of a purist, but you know, I'm not so much anymore. It's like someone says, "Oh, do you ask permission?" Well, if you ask permission, you may also get a good picture, but it won't be what drew you to make the picture in the first place. You know, you got to be fast and completely sure of your gear, and fast and quiet. And then if someone says, "Do you take my picture?" Well, yeah. Would you like to see it? Can I send it to you? You know, but then you get a situation like this. Now, this is the cover of my of the retro. There aren't many of these of the retrospective I had in Mannheim in 2020. They printed a beautiful catalog, but this picture was taken at Occupy Wall Street, and I took the picture of this young woman. David Gibson published it in a book of 100 great street photographs and said this about it: this may be the most beautiful picture of this young woman taken in her life, and she'll never see it. Because that's how it is with street photography. There aren't that many of us. The stuff doesn't get seen. I had no idea who she was, except I do know that after I took the picture, she sort of woke up and lit a cigarette and smiled and said, I'm so sleepy. I've been dancing for 5 hours. And I kind of wondered about the future of the revolution. But, you know, because I lived right nearby, so I was up with that all the time. Anyway, but these are odd things that happen in street photography.
I've got a few quick fire questions for you.
Please.
New York or London?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about the street photography community now on Instagram and in London in general?
Okay, this is going to be a little controversial. I think people aren't nearly hard enough on their own pictures. I think people are way too easily satisfied. There's way too many. Great capture, dude. I hate great capture. It's not a capture. It's a photograph. You haven't captured anything. And if you have captured it, you should let it go. It's just so much of it is the same. And you have to be hard on yourself. You know, as I said earlier when we were starting, don't show any of the bad pictures. If you're not sure, ask somebody, but don't post it. We're swimming, we're drowning in a sea of images. And ultimately it's like, how do I know what a good picture is again? And you gotta study, and not just, you know, the random group. And you have to go to the library and study the history of photography. Or you don't have to go to the library, but you can find it. But really pay attention. Why? Even if it's stuff you don't like, but it's in a book, and they, you know, like the greatest hit, you know, the history of photography, and you say, well, why does someone like that picture? It won't change your mind as to whether or not you like that picture, but it will show you, it will make you think about it anyway, and maybe that'll influence you. And that's kind of what happened to me in the early years when I was soaking up photographic history like a sponge in the library.
It's quite interesting you mentioned like just sort of not posting rubbish photographs, because I'd say last year I've changed my style where I hardly ever posted on Instagram. I stopped posting because I was posting every day, and the problem with posting every day is you generally do end up posting shit, because you don't get a good photograph all the time. So if you're gonna
nobody
post,
does.
No, so I decided, right, I'm just gonna post good stuff, and sometimes you might not go out and shoot for a few weeks, so you'll just end up posting sort of old stuff and stuff like that. But I would recommend that, because for me that's made my sort of work slightly better, because I really like have a long sort of thought about whether this is good enough for me to post, you know. And yeah. I think that's a good lesson to sort of take with you, and it's good that you said it, because I think people don't say it enough. Just to really like decide, is this actually good enough? Is it something that you'd stand up and put up on a wall or something like that, or is it just a photograph that you think's okay? And I think you're right.
And Danny, you just hit a really good point. Put up on a wall. I tell you, street photography doesn't sell in galleries and prints, because people don't put it up on their wall, but they will, most of it, but they will buy a book or a zine, because that's, I think, ultimately the venue. And I've had a lot of exhibitions, because I grew up in the, before the internet days, and I was working with galleries. But it's satisfying when you have something that's really good. It's so satisfying. But it's 1,000 to 1. I mean, I've mentioned Kertész with his 70-year working life. You can immediately, if you know his work, you can call to mind. That sounds like a cat, or is it a baby?
Very sorry, because the Instagram's going to do that.
Yeah. But you can call to mind 30, 50 pictures in 70 years. Same with Cartier-Bresson. There they are. Yeah, mine was just up. Hello, Muffin.
You guys are cat people? Keep
And
talking.
it's just one of those things. If I get 10 decent street pictures a year, a dog guy. Well, good for you. So anyway, that's good. You know, you get it's 1,000 to 1 in this job. 1,000 clicks for one really good photograph, and that's okay. Whether it be film or whether it, or even worse with digital, because it's so easy because it doesn't cost anything anymore. But especially if you're a film photographer and you're paying a little more attention, and it is more expensive than it used to be, it's just the way it is. You just got to be hard on yourself. I'm starting to ramble and repeat myself, so
Do
please
you
stop
feel
me.
like you say it's 1,000 to 1 for the photos? Do you feel like if you go out, you should make, if you're shooting on, especially if you're shooting digital, should you be really trying to shoot as much as possible?
No, no, you should always, sometimes it happens quick, and it's like quick, and you take a picture, and it may work or it may not. And then other times it's like you're working and you're working and you're thinking and you're shooting, and you come home with nothing. It's a heartbreak. But, again, that's not being easily pleased, because when you do get something, it's like, holy shit, this is great. And you
So
may not
Absolutely.
know for a while.
you still get that big buzz when you actually
Yeah.
you've got a shot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I,
Um,
and I will say this, though, Richard. You say when you go out and you shoot, you don't get anything that's heartbreaking. I still think it's pretty good, even if you don't get anything, honestly,
yeah, you got to go
because
out and do it. You're
it's
right.
almost like you get into like that headspace of going out and shooting. It's not even really that important if you get something. Obviously, that's the cherry on top of the sundae. But even if you're just going through the motions, still feels pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That's
Um,
absolutely right. You're not going to get anything if you don't go out and shoot.
one thing
Guilty
I
as
was going
charged.
to ask you, one last question for you. Do you think it's become easier for people with work from the past to show their work to a wider audience now that you've got Instagram, you've got social media, or has it become harder?
Well, it's easier to get it seen, because before it would be seen in an art gallery, and while that's all very satisfying, or a book, how many people are actually going to see it in raw numbers? Not many. So with social, it's the double-edged sword. You get buried in the sea of images, or no, you get buried. That's mixing my metaphors. You get drowned in the sea of images, but it gets seen by a lot more people. But let me show you this picture because it fit something we were talking about. This was taken in Russia in 1992, snowy day.
Amazing.
I love this picture. But to this day, it was snowing, and I had my hand over my arm over my camera, and as I stepped up onto the sidewalk, to this day, I'm not sure if I consciously clicked the shutter or my arm clicked the shutter. But it's one of the
Happy
best pictures I
accident.
got from that trip.
So you actually, when you got them developed, you noticed this one and you don't know whether you took it on purpose or
Jumped
not.
right out. Jumped right
So
out. When I got
I've
home
got
and processed all the film, it was like, whoa.
Hey,
Because,
so I've got a question about these pictures from back in the day, like
yeah,
that one in particular. So when I see that picture, I get hit with nostalgia, and
that's what
I'm
black
sure
and
you
white
do.
does.
Well, black and white does that, but also the age of the picture. It's old Russia, Soviet Russia. The stuff with the big hair. There's a lot of that nostalgia coming in. Now that you're shooting modern or in contemporaneous times, do you ever think about trying to put nostalgia in there for the future in what you're shooting now?
No, I didn't think about it then, and I don't think about it now. I'm photographing what's in front of me. And what is in front of me is now. It's only nostalgia later.
Now, I suppose what Todd's saying is, say for instance, people when people think about this, so for the coronation, for instance, they'll go out on the coronation day, or they'll go out on a special event that, or during the COVID times, people will they'll be aware that people will look back on these photographs, so they'll go out. Did you do any of that yourself?
Not really. I mean, that's I don't think of that as nostalgia. I think of that as just documentation, knowing that this is a special time and I should take some pictures of it. The last time I really did that was Occupy Wall Street. I was a block away. It was keeping me up at night. So I was, go walking through it all the time because it was right there. When I moved here, Diana died 3 months after I moved to Britain. So, and I was living on that side of town. So I was in Kensington and looking at all the people going by the sea of flowers, and I somehow wangled myself onto the funeral route, and I have a picture of Spencer, the princes, Charles, all in a line moving behind the catafalque, and it's a crystal clear photograph. And photograph some of the spectators. Because I'm always interested in spectators, because that's where my outtakes come from. So that's now an odd nostalgia, but I wasn't thinking it at the time. I was just here from Kentucky and thinking of myself as an event photographer. So it's an event. I'm going. Goodbye. Without a press pass. And then I learned how hard it is to do things without a press pass.
Alrighty.
I couldn't go back to the Derby now. I don't have a press pass anymore. It's been 30 years.
I would have thought they'd make you an honorary photographer for that.
Yeah, your lips to God's ears, but I just don't think so. But I laugh. Martin Parr is actually a very nice man, and he went to the Derby a few years ago, and what he photographed were exactly the same things that I was photographing 25, 30 years ago, because it's the same sensibility. Only he didn't have to earn a living from it directly,
Yeah.
So he didn't have to take the pretty pictures too.
It's been great having you on, Richard. I've really enjoyed this live stream, and I think you've got a lot to say, and
thank you.
Your photographs speak for themselves, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, gentlemen, it's been fun.
Oh, Billy, riding on an eastbound freight train, speeding through the night. Hobo Bill, a railroad bum, was fighting for his life.